Hey everybody, and welcome to Don't Copy That Floppy, your weekly video game news podcast slash vodcast. Broadcasting live Friday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv slash DCTF podcast. So, it is Friday, August 31st, the very end of August. Summer's over, everybody. Get out of here. It's time to go buy video games because fall's coming. We've got quite a bit of news, and by that I mean actually not that much news to talk about.
No, not a lot.
And we're going to have to start off the show on a very somber note with a very unfortunate event that happened, I think it was last weekend.
Yes.
We're going to then go back to our happy-go-lucky selves by doing some updates on stories from past episodes. Specifically, we got Battlefields and Riots. Then we're going to talk about another Nintendo Indie or Nindie Showcase. And then we're going to talk about the biggest news of the week. Puddlegate.
The Puddle... Oh, God.
Ugh. And then we're going to end the show on a light note and a fun note with us discussing the almost hour-long gameplay trailer of Cyberpunk 2077. So stick around for that.
Indeed.
But let's start right into it. Let's get it out of the way. It's no good. There was a shooting in Jacksonville, Florida this past weekend, I believe. And it was at a video game competition. Specifically, this was Madden 19.
Yes.
They were playing, it was a qualifier, I believe, for finals. And a gunman, who apparently was one of the competitors, opened fire, killing 2 people and wounding, I believe, 10? Yes, 10 injured.
Nine were injured by gunshots. One was injured by non-gunshot.
Oh, that's true. Because I think it was because everyone was running to get out. So one person was hurt in the rush to get out.
In the trample.
Yeah. But the 2 men that lost their lives were Eli Clayton, 22 years old, from California, and Taylor Robertson, 28 years old, from West Virginia. And man, it's just really sad.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it happens so fucking often nowadays in this country that you just have to put up your hands and be like, I guess nothing's going to change.
Yep.
I guess it affects everything. Like this could have been. I think this is really eye-opening for a lot of quote unquote gamers and people kind of in the industry, because this has not happened yet. But it was bound to, and it's bound to happen again at like a PAX or an E3. Like a lot of the things that I've read about are like people asking other industry people are like, how tight is the security at esports events, and how tight is the security at PAX and E3? And the answer is not really that much at all.
Yeah, especially like smaller events like this, like qualifiers for the bigger events. I'm pretty sure this event had 0 security at it, or maybe
it was at a bar. It was a game bar.
Yeah. So
I can't imagine it was very much. And it's Florida, and as a person who lives in Florida, you can carry and conceal legally, which is, I don't agree with it, but that's the way this particular state is. And yeah, it's just going to keep happening, which is the really shitty thing. And this could have happened anywhere. This could have been a concert. It could have been a nightclub. Could have been, a school, a movie theater. It just happened to be at a game bar. And it just so happened that the guy was distraught. And because it's so easy to get guns, he shot some people and shot himself. And that's just what happens, I guess, And that's it. That's the worst part, is that it's just going to keep happening. And, it's going to happen at some point at some gaming convention, somewhere. And then maybe it'll get more attention, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the thing is, after Sandy Hook, honestly, nothing changed after Sandy Hook. I was like, okay, well then I guess, as a country, we've decided that we like guns more than we like kids being murdered by guns. So that's the ticket to hell we bought as a country.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of been... It's been decided. That conversation is over in America.
Pretty much.
The I wanted to talk a little bit about the two people who passed away. Specifically, give their gamer tag, like screen names, because they're fun. It's the only fun part of the story. Taylor, spot me, please. Please spelled with a bunch of Z's, which I love. Robertson. He was, I believe, a husband and a father. He had won some Madden competitions. I think it was like in 2017.
Yeah.
Or 2016. And he had won the Madden NFL 17 Classic.
Mm-hmm. And they were talking about how he'd made over like 80 grand.
Yeah.
In Madden winnings.
Mm-hmm. So he was going back to try and reclaim that title. Let's see, we have some quotes here. We are shocked and deeply saddened by the senseless violence in Jacksonville and the tragic deaths of Dot City Gaming team member Taylor, spot me please, Robinson, and Eli True Clayton. Okay, so I don't like Eli's gamer tag as much, but
it's a little bland.
Yeah, it's fine. But that was Robertson's gaming sponsor tweeted that out. Let's see. They were great competitors and well-loved members of the Madden community. Our thoughts and deepest sympathies go out to their families, loved ones, and all those affected by this tragedy. So, yeah, it's Eli Trueboy Clayton. I'm sorry. They got it wrong in their tweet. Trueboy is pretty good. It's pretty good. And he was obviously much younger and had come from California to compete.
Yeah, he was 22, former football player as well for Calabasas High School, I guess. And from Woodland Hills, California. And pretty much the same. The quote's just saying he was a great guy, and he was way too young to be shot doing something that he liked.
Yeah. It's interesting because there was a weird, like, they tried really briefly to resurrect the media narrative that video games make people violent and that's why this happened for like 5 seconds. But everyone was very quick to point out that these were all people who play a football video game.
Yes.
Doesn't involve guns or violence really at all. I mean, as far as you consider football violent, which I suppose in a way it is, but
it's organized violence and it's a simulation of organized violence. So yeah.
But
I saw some like just stupid right wing nut jobbers who were on Twitter who were just like, oh, this is obviously it's all because of the violence of the games they were playing, and they didn't even read that they were playing Madden, or maybe they did read Madden, they don't know what Madden is, and so they just assume that they were playing something hyper violent. But nope, it was Madden, good old American football.
Yep,
American pastime.
Apparently there are some lawsuits against, I believe, the Game Bar and EA.
Yeah.
Pertaining to this. I don't have the article in front of me, but it's it's just about, I think it's from the families, and they were just saying, "Hey, why didn't you have security at this? This could have been prevented." And it's I mean, it's not an unfair point that they could have done more than nothing especially knowing, how things are in America with shootings and how common they are at this point. And that it's in Florida, a place where gun laws are much laxer than some other places. Not that is actually that great an indicator, because shootings just kind of happen everywhere.
Right. If you want to do it bad enough, then you'll do it.
We have some quotes from some other people who were there. Tony Montagnino? I can't pronounce it.
Montagno.
Yeah. G-Tech.
Something. G-Tech.
G-Tech. He was struck twice in the lower body. One went through, the other was lodged, he had tweeted. Still doesn't feel real. Saw a lot of things today I wish I hadn't seen, but I also saw a community of people rally around each other and a massive amount of support from friends and family to check on everyone. I'm thankful for everyone of you guys in the community. I love y'all. Which is sort of a nice silver lining here, that people did come out in support of each other, that the Madden community and the sort of esports and the gaming community showed a lot of support there, which was nice. I think that
I follow a lot of people that are not a part of the Madden community, but part of like the fighting game community.
Yep.
And they were all, it was like a very supportive kind of environment, which is nice. It's nice that even though our hobby gets bigger and bigger, that it can, some good can come out of it every once in a while, you know, even if it's in the face of this horrible shit.
Yep. And yeah, I think that as esports continues to grow, it's just going to make these kind of things more likely. There was another aspect to the story, and I can't remember, that I want to mention.
Can mention what little is known about the motivations of the shooter, the man named David Katz, 24. They have not, or police have not released any motivations as of yet. But he was, as you said, a member of the Madden community. He's won certain tournaments in the past. He had, I think, lost some games at this particular tournament where the shooting happened. And then he purposefully seemed to aim for Madden players, not any other patrons. And they did say that he had purchased the pistols that he used, because he had multiple ones. He purchased the pistols he used within the last couple months, so perhaps premeditated, maybe not. Hard to say until we get any kind of word of motivation. But it reads like any other, sad to say, it reads like any other mass shooting that's happened over the past couple of years. This guy, white guy, had a history of schizophrenia and, you know, mental health, untreated mental health problems and easy access to guns. And, yep, that's what happens when those things come together.
Yep, pretty much. So, I think with that, we can move on from this story.
Yeah, hopefully.
We've pretty much covered it. As others have said, you know, thoughts to those families. I hope that they, I hope that they're okay. That's a real rough thing to go through.
Yeah, two young guys that just playing video games. Can't even do that anymore. Yeah, I hope it brings up some change comes out of this, but I know it won't, so...
So let's talk about Battlefield 5.
Let's talk about war games that are going to fail.
We talked about Battlefield 5, I think it was last week.
Yes.
And about how they were not in a great shape pre-orders-wise. Real bad, no pre-orders. Nobody. It was like 80% below Black Ops 4's pre-orders, and part of the reason for that was because it was coming out right in between Call of Duty, Black Ops 4, and that big old Red Dead Redemption 2 game.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we talked about at the time was like, hey, if they could just release this at a different time, that would probably be real better.
Yes.
So then this week we have a story from, it was updated today, but I think it's from earlier in the week. Battlefield 5 has been delayed, and they've confirmed a new release date. It is now going to be coming out in November, so basically a month delay.
Yes.
I think it was originally...
This is so funny. That it was originally supposed to come out on November 20th. It's going to be coming out October 19th.
No, it was originally going to come out October 19th. Now it's going to come out.
Oh, right. Sorry. 20th. Yeah, other way around. This was really funny to me, though, because, yeah, it's getting delayed. I think we probably all know why, but their quote for why they're delaying it, I thought was a funny lie. Quote, we're going to take time to continue to make some final adjustments to core gameplay and to ensure we really deliver on the potential of a new Battlefield of new Battlefield live service Tides of War, wrote DICE general manager Oscar Gabrielson. We know moving the launch date means that we all have to wait a little longer, but we're going to take our time and make sure we get it right. So that's not true because big games like this have to go into certification, and then they have to start pressing discs at least like 6 months in advance. So the game's done. They're not changing anything about it. Of course, there's always day one patches and stuff like that nowadays, but they're not changing core mechanics. This game is already on discs and getting pressed on discs.
Yeah, they're not. Good old Oscar is not fooling anybody with that statement.
No. This is purely, I think, because, and I think most people think this as well, purely because of Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead is going to be an absolute bombshell. It's going to blow everything out of the water. And they know that, first of all, there's not a lot of hype for this game. It doesn't seem like pre-orders are down in the first place. And they know that they're just going to take a beating if they come out right around Red Dead. So they're going to try to push it off. Unfortunately, where they're pushing it off, that you also have Fallout 76, Hitman 2, which, might not be as big of a deal. Yeah, and Call of Duty. So they're taking a chance, I think, by putting it in that clump instead of the Red Dead clump. That's a chance I'd probably also take if I were them. Yeah. So I just find it very funny that they're saying, like, yeah, we're still changing core gameplay assumptions. It's like, I highly doubt that. I highly, highly doubt that.
Yeah, no, it's a little silly that they're trying to. It would be fine if they just came out and said, like, hey, we just think it's too crowded a playing field, so we're gonna give people a chance to save up some more money, so then they can buy it next month.
That is strange that no one ever says that. Like, no big companies ever just come out and say that shit. Like, because this happens like a lot with repositioning stuff. It usually doesn't happen this close to the release date. I'm surprised that they're pulling it to the line, this close. But yeah, a lot of companies will do this stuff for like, oh, well, we're pushing the game back a couple months to really polish out some of those bugs and stuff. And then you look at the release schedule and you're like, oh, it's because fucking Metal Gear Solid 5 is coming out with the same week as your game or whatever game it is.
And I assume it's like to save face, right? Is the reason why they don't say that. But the fact that we all know the reason why they're doing it, like, why lie?
Yeah, I don't think there's any shame in it. It's you're trying to position it so your game will sell well.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with that.
So it's the smartest move. I'm glad they did it. And also, because it's coming out a month later, that gives more time for people to pre-order in case, those stragglers at the last minute just needed more time to make up their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So they're only going to sell more copies doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, I think that even if they were to say that, there is not just their profits to be concerned about, but like you said, people only have so much money to buy multiple $60 games in a month, and I think people only have the time and attention to play so many games a month. And Red Dead's going to be a big, long game, probably going to be definitely worth the $60. I think it would be much more honest if EA's like, yeah, we know that you're going to be spending a lot of money this fall, so we're going to try to put it in a pocket where you might have some extra cash to buy it for you or your kid or whoever, your significant other. Yeah, it would just be a lot more honest. I wish game companies were just more honest, Lex. Can we just be more honest, please?
Not EA. No,
God,
sir.
God, no.
Let's talk about a game company that's trying to be less douchebaggy. Less bro-y, perhaps.
Yeah. Less frat.
Yeah, less of a frat. So we talked, I think not last week, but several weeks ago about Riot Games. There was a big expose on them, and it was about how it's a sexist workplace environment. Real bad.
Yes.
And lots of first-hand accounts of real bad stuff. They basically behave like a frat. And weeks later, Riot Games finally decided to respond to it. Riot Games responds to toxic workplace allegations and reports. Now, this is from August 29th from Polygon. And their statement is not... I don't know, actually, this is probably not their full statement, but there's some bullet-pointed chunks of it in this article. And I'll read what they have for you here. For the past 3 weeks, we've been focusing on listening and learning. As a company, we're used to patching problems ASAP, but this patch will not happen overnight.
Oh, God.
It's a 75 gig patch.
Oh, yeah. This is day one DLC.
Yeah. We will weave this change into our cultural DNA and leave no room for sexism or misogyny. Inclusivity, diversity, respect, and equality are all non-negotiable. Let's see. To rioters, contractors, former rioters, and past contractors, we're sorry. We're sorry that Riot hasn't always been or wasn't the place we promised you. And we're sorry it took so long for us to hear you. In the days, weeks, months, years to come, we're going to make Riot a place we can all be proud of. To players and fans, past and present, we're humbled by the time you spent with us. We know that the studio behind a game can be an important part of how you feel about the game. We know we've let you down, and we're committed to fixing that. So, as apologies go, this isn't actually a bad apology.
No, it's straightforward, and it doesn't beat around the bush.
It's just embarrassing that it took them 3 weeks to write it.
Yeah, when they got around to it.
Yeah. They apparently are they made hires. I don't know if it says in this report, but they made hires for people to look into diversity within the company.
Yes.
And for future hiring.
Yeah, they're hiring, I think, like an entire third party company to come in and check out their hiring and culture practices. Yeah, and generally speaking, I mean, you see this happen at companies every once in a while where they have to put the brakes on and write up something because a bunch of people say that they're full of sexist pigs. And it's all pretty standard for that kind of stuff. Like the measures that they're going to be taking, if they're going to be taking them, are all pretty standard. Like, hiring a third party evaluation, investigating their processes, and expanding, culture of acceptance and yada yada yada. It's the same kind of stuff that all these companies say when they're in the shit. But at least they're trying, I guess. If it is, that is if it's sincere. Yeah. I'm sure that it's somewhat sincere because they're a huge game company still on the rise and they don't want to lose people. They don't want to be looked at as shitty and lose players for the one game that they have.
Their one game.
Their one game. Because if they lose players in one game.
It baffles me that a company can just... Like, I understand that League of Legends is a big game. I'm not trying to dispute that. But eventually it's not going to be anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not... They just have one game. Actually, maybe they have another game, or maybe they have another game in the works, but it just seems crazy to me because League of Legends is not new at all. So it's not like they've been talking about all these other big projects they're working on. Not that I know of, anyway.
Yeah, they've acquired a bunch of like smaller studios in the past that were working on stuff. And I always assumed that they were going to integrate that into something. And they have a division because they mentioned the co-founders, the presidents of Bro County, and they talk about how they're the heads of like develop like a new game development division or whatever. So I assume that they are always looking at working on new stuff. They certainly have the fucking money to do it. But yeah, it's a little funny that they're just rocking out League of Legends, and a lot of it I think is because it's super popular outside the United States.
Yeah,
and they have branches of their company all over the world. Which actually gets brought up later in this article, as some people... There's a lot... They talk about how that a lot of people responded to the original article by saying stuff like, oh, I never experienced that in my time, and I worked in the Australian branch of Riot. And I'm sure that, a company as huge as them, not literally everyone can be a sexist frat bro. There's probably nice people that work there. It's just that when it happens at the higher up end of the management, it kind of has this trickle-down effect of affecting the entire company culture. And apparently that's the two founders, or at least one of the founders. They mentioned there's a part in here where some guy talks about a meeting that he had with one of the partners, one of the co-founders, and he just sounds like an absolute douche.
So there's two things I want to point out from this statement. One of them is they say that they're sorry that Riot hasn't been the place they promised it to be to employees and contractors. But as we talked about, and it wasn't even necessarily part of the sort of harassment story, because this had been known before that, was their hiring practices were pretty much just, hey, are you an elite gamer? That's all we care about.
Yeah.
If you want to work here. And I'm like, well, I mean, if those were the practices, then it kind of was the company you promised, right?
Yes.
Like, they made it very clear that the things they cared about were not diversity, inclusivity, respect, and equality. It was just how sick nasty you are at video games.
Yeah, if you could do like a sick 360 no scope,
Can you rocket jump? Well, then
can you rocket jump? Yeah. How long have you been playing WoW? How many raids have you done?
Yeah. And the other part of it is they say they know that to the players, they say that they know the studio behind a game can be an important part of how you feel about that game. And I would say that is important for a lot of other games and a lot of other studios, but I don't think, because we know that Riot's player base is so toxic, either they're cool with the studio being like that, or more likely they just don't care. Right. Because their crowd does not care about that at all. And I'm sure that if Riot had their way, they would not bother to fix any of this stuff, because they know that the people they're making money off of don't care if they fix this stuff or not.
Yeah. I wanted to say, two things. One, I think that it's very rare that a company has a lot of personality, like it's rare that a company, a studio has a lot of outward facing personality besides the games that they're making. And I think 90% of people that play games don't care about the studio. I think you see it rarely when companies I'd say Remedy has a kind of you kind of feel their personality through their games. They put their lead writer as the face of Max Payne, for fuck's sake. I think that you see that, but I think with companies like Riot or Valve is actually a great example. Valve is basically faceless. Besides Gabe Newell, no one thinks about Valve as a company. They just think about the stuff they put out.
I think there are definitely big companies out there that people care a lot about that. Blizzard and Bethesda being two that come to mind.
Yeah. But Bethesda's a good example, yeah. I think Bethesda's actually on the forefront of having more of a face, more of a personality as a company. And they really push that with all the other companies they've been hiring now that they've become a big publisher. Id definitely has it has had a history of personality. And I think Bethesda does too. Yeah, Blizzard to an extent. I think Blizzard is so big right now that it's you kind of have the divisions of Blizzard that have faces. You think of what's his face, Jeff Kaplan, and you think of Overwatch. Yeah. You think of Mike Morhaime as kind of the big daddy guy up at the top, the guy that kind of runs everything. And I think I don't remember the people that are in charge of Hearthstone, but yeah, I think that there is some of that. And yeah, I think something like Riot, probably a lot of people don't care. Then it only gives them a face when you put a bad face on, that bad face being sexist bro dudes. And the other thing I wanted to say, going back a little bit, was it's when they're saying we want talking about the culture of games, being important to them and stuff. Turns out that the general culture of competitive games is toxic and horrible. So if you are trying to be edgy and trying to be like that culture in your corporate workplace, it's probably going to be shitty and toxic, because that's how most competitive game cultures are, especially online multiplayer PC games. So yeah, it's no wonder, I guess, that their corporate culture is like that, because that's how the actual culture is, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now let's keep, I think as we go, the mood keeps lightening a little more. So let's even lighten it up a tad more with.
Let's bring in some of those nice ochres and nice cadmium yellows.
Yeah, there you go. Put a happy little cloud over here.
A happy little Mario. Here's a company that definitely has actually a lot of personality in terms of stuff, and they're huge. That's probably one of the reasons why they are so successful, now that I think about it, is that they have a very nice outward-facing personality.
Well, that's also part of the thing where people always get on them for sort of trying to micromanage the way their stuff is portrayed and the kind of games that appear on their consoles. And I think that's mainly because they try to have a very strong personality. We, of course, are talking about Nintendo. And
again,
last week they did a Nindie Showcase, and this week they did another Nindie Showcase. And last week's Nindie Showcase was 16 games, and that was apparently a European Nindie Showcase. This week's Nindie Showcase, we were back to the Americans being in charge, and back to awkward, weird announcer people.
Yay!
Which was unfortunate, because the European one, with that pleasant British lady, she really nailed it. So I was a little sad, but if I can get this webpage to move, or my web browser
IGN.
to unfreeze,
it's IGN, so of course that will not happen.
Oh, that's too bad. But we had
or maybe
22,
your computer's broken. Who knows?
We had 22 games they showed. A lot of them, however, were ports. For instance, we got Hyper Light Drifter, which is going to get ported to the Switch, which is awesome. That's a fantastic game. Just the pixel artist of all the Dark Souls games.
Yes.
and really an incredible little game. So happy about that. I can't scroll through. Please tell me some of the other games that are in here.
Okay. So up
Oh,
this
here we go.
have
I got
Towerfall.
it. Yeah, Towerfall. I can't believe I saw Towerfall in here, and I'm like, wow, I forgot about Towerfall because that game is old.
Yes, it is. It's been around since 2013.
Do you remember the Ouya?
Oh my God! Yes. How could I forget?
Yeah, the one game that was relevant for it that's now been ported to everything else. So it's getting ported.
Now, Lex. The bad port of Final Fantasy VI was also on the Ouya.
No, that's true. So yeah,
the mobile, the handheld version.
then we're gonna have Treasure Stack, which is basically a phone game. It's a phone. I don't. There were so this was 22 games rather than 16 games, but easily a good third of these games were either games that we shouldn't care about or ports. Let's see, Zarvot. I actually can't remember this one.
Too bad it's not Zardoz.
What?
Too bad it's not Zardoz.
I wish.
Yeah. Why is there not a Zardoz game? Come on, Sean Connery, you're still alive. Make it happen.
I can't remember what this is. I kind of want to play this video to see what it is, but it's going to give me all sorts of audio, and it's not going to load correctly.
Oh, the internet.
Man, IGN's really just beefing it.
It's bad. They're real bad.
First
Philip Mewson, now this.
First. Oh, okay. It's a little. You have blocks. It's like robot deathmatch stuff. You have little blocky robots, and you just beat each other up in a little battlefield.
That's nice shaders.
Yeah.
Nice. Looks pretty.
My Nico's Night Market.
Sure.
It's all about cats. So you go to it's a charming indie game. This is actually one of the more interesting original games that were there, because I don't think this is a port. Or maybe it is, I'm not sure. But I hadn't heard of it before. And it looked really charming and fun. You have all these it's this like little Japan inspired place, and there are cats everywhere. And you're this girl who, like, I don't know, there's like a cat spirit, something.
It looks like there's cat plants.
There's a lot of cats in this, all right?
Looks like there's woodworking as well. That looks interesting.
You pull cats out of the ground like plants.
Yes. Yep.
There's crafting.
Did you see the woodworking yet?
Yeah. The jellyfish box. There's a guy who wears a milk carton as an outfit. An old man.
Yep.
There's FBI agents.
Yes.
Anyway, no, this game looks very charming. Yeah.
This art style reminds me of something in particular, but I can't remember what it is.
Oh, there's sumo wrestling. There's cat racing.
Sick.
Great. There's dance parties. Yeah, this game's got a lot to offer. All right, so check that out.
So apparently, it's not on Steam. I just looked it up to see if it was on anything else. So this seems like it's a first timer on there.
We have Samurai Gun 2, which is sort of a 2D fighting platformer type thing, as I recall.
I have not thought of Samurai Gun in a long time.
Yeah.
That game came out a while ago.
Let's see, we have Bullet Age, which I actually don't remember at all. I might start that up as well, just to skip on through that trailer, refresh my memory. There were a lot of there's a lot of little things. There was not very much screen time given to each thing, with a few exceptions. And
there's one big surprising game on this list.
Oh, we're gonna get to that. I think that was at the end. But yeah. Oh, okay. So Bullet Age is just an action platformer. Sure. Yeah.
It's a shooter kind of game.
Kind of looks like it was made in Flash a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say this definitely looks like a Newgrounds game.
The World Next Door. It's story.
I have no idea. Let's take a look at all of these. I mean, we got time to kill.
Yeah, we got time to kill. This would be going so much faster if these video players didn't take so long to load.
If fucking IGN just bit the bullet and accepted YouTube as their Lord and Savior instead of wanting proprietary video.
I know, right? Oh, okay. So The World Next Door is you're a normal person that goes into a fantasy world of demons and animal people. There's some furries in there, and then you fight stuff in dungeons, but all the combats are like weird puzzle type things that you have to like step on certain areas to cast spells or like do attacks. And it also kind of looks like it's made in Flash.
Well, yes, this very much does. The animation's very low budget, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indie title, and that's fine.
It's probably made by like 2 people.
Yeah.
Definitely got a DeviantArt kind of vibe going on with all the characters. DeviantArt.
I'm going to start skipping through here. We got Levelhead. I don't remember that one. We have King of the Hat. I don't remember that one. Oh, Untitled Goose Game is my favorite.
Yes, that game's crazy.
Straight up the best. It's just a goose simulator. You're a goose, and you just interact with the people around you and try and mess up their day any way you can think to do.
It has a surprisingly in-depth. It has surprisingly in-depth systems too. Like the way people actually interact with their environment, you interact with them and fuck them up is like surprisingly deep for a game called Untitled Goose Game.
Yes, it's so good.
Yes, and it kind of has this Katamari Damacy style to it.
Yeah, the art style does kind of remind me of that. You are a horrible goose.
That goose just messing people up.
Oh, yeah. Hiding in the garden. Stealing that guy's hat.
Yep.
Honking all over the place. Chasing people. Throwing people's belongings in a pond.
Yep. You know what's funny, though? Is that geese are horrible creatures in real life as well. So
yeah, no, I'm sure that was the inspiration for this game.
Yeah, they're mean bastards that will bite and hurt you and steal your clothes.
Yes, and this game is made by House, which is great.
Yes.
So this was then the next game that they have on this list is the one that they showed off at the end of the blah 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 blah, the end of the Nindie Showcase, which is that they are porting over Into the Breach from the creators of Faster Than Light to the Switch, and you can actually buy it right now. It's on Switch. Yep. It's there. That's
awesome.
Go do it. It's great. So
Into the Breach is a super cool game if you've not played it. If you like Faster Than Light, it's not like it at all. It has a similar style, but my takeaway was from the two, and I love both of the games, is that Faster Than Light is a game about tactically managing crises, and Into the Breach is a game about strategically planning like over a long period of time, and I suck at strategy. So if you're good at strategy, it's your kind of game. It's got mechs and bugs, giant bugs and giant mechs fighting for the world's safety. Yeah, it's awesome.
Nice.
Good shit.
Nice. So, very excited that was out. That was a fun reveal. We have The Messenger, 2D action platformer. A lot of 2D action platformers. We have Bastion is getting ported, which is also kind of old, but a cool game.
It's almost a decade. I actually bought that for like $1.20 on Steam during the summer sale because I've never actually played it, even though it's been around like forever.
It's got great art direction. I like that about it a lot.
It's got that guy with the deep voice talking to you the whole time.
Yeah, the guy with the deep voice.
The guy with the deep voice.
We have Wasteland 2 Director's Cut, a game I've never cared about.
That's the one I was most surprised about, actually. Because I'm like, because I've played that game, and how the hell are you going to play that without a mouse and keyboard is beyond me. And it's a very long game, too.
Okay.
Very big.
We also have Undertale that's getting ported. Fun stuff.
Of course.
I think we kind of expected Undertale was going to get ported. I also feel like I heard about that already, but whatever.
Yeah.
Light Fingers, whatever. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP, which I actually have on PC. That also is an old game.
It's very old, almost a decade.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a fun game, but again, like these ports are real late.
They've also not, the fucking people that made that still haven't come out with Below, which they've been working on forever.
Almost a decade.
Yep.
We have Japax Party Pack 5. Sure. Whatever. Transistor, another port of a not as old, but still kind of old game, but a very cool game.
Yeah. Yep.
Desert Child, I don't know what this is. A young and talented hoverbike racer who needs to figure out how they can scrape enough cash together through running races and odd jobs to punch your one-way ticket to the Red Planet to enter the biggest race in the universe, the Grand Prix. So that actually sounds great, and I don't remember this from the Nindie Showcase at all. But that actually sounds more interesting than almost all the other games I remember from the showcase. So that's coming in December. That's cool. And then we have Dragon Marked for Death, which is a 2D side-scrolling RPG. Up to 4 players can work together in local or online multiplayer and do stuff. Sure.
Sure, why not?
Why not? So this showcase, there was a lot of good games in it, but almost all of the good games in it, actually I would say all the good games in it, are ports.
Yeah. And a lot of older ports too. Yeah. This is, I mean, it's interesting to me because it reminds me of the same kind of tactics that that Nintendo used with the Wii U, except the content that they did on the Wii U was shovelware, and this time they're actually putting good games on it. It seemed that, you know, with the Wii and the Wii U, they were really trying to shore up the library, so they'd buy like games made by like fucking like Cold Stone Creamery and stuff like that, like weird shitty shovelware games, which are really entertainingly bad, but they're bad. And it was just to shore up the library, have stuff on the shelves, have stuff for people to buy, grandmas to buy their kids unknowingly. It seems like they're trying to do that with the Wii, except that they're looking to the recent history, like the past 10 or so years, of really great indie work that started, I don't know, sometime around when Xbox Arcade was really big and like Super Meat Boy came out. So yeah, like a decade ago about. They're kind of reaching back into that catalog and filling up their platform with that. And I think all these are, one, great for the people that make them, because in a lot of cases, the people that made these games are still small developers, and I'm sure could use all the money they can get, especially being on a Nintendo platform. And it helps the Switch be like a great handheld platform where you can take all these games that I think would go really well on a handheld. Like Wasteland is a little weird, but I think, you know, games like Undertale is a great game to have, you know, to play on sessions on a bus, or you know, any of the action platformers on there. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's a little much, but it's a good thing.
All right, so, you know, I just realized we actually spent too much time talking about the Nindies. If only this page had loaded better, that would have been a much quicker story.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Puddles. You like Puddles? Oh, boy. You like Spider-Man?
There's not enough of them. There needs to be more Puddles.
So basically, there's a fun little story from this week. The big old controversy, Spider-Man for the PS4, Insomniac Games Spider-Man. The fans are arguing about downgraded graphics and also about puddles. This is actually a kind of story we have heard before. A game gets shown off at an E3 or similar event, and then once it actually starts coming out, in this case we have review copies out in the hands of reviewers. People look at the game and they say, that's weird. This doesn't look as nice as it looked at the conference. That's worrying. So, big notable examples of this from the past are games like the first Watch Dogs, right?
The first Watch Dogs is big, yeah.
That was a big deal. Maybe Witcher Aliens, 3. Colonial Marines.
Well, that game, yeah, that's a whole thing onto itself. Yeah. The Witcher 3 was a big one, where there was an obvious, like, cut in graphics quality. Still looked great when it came out, but yeah. Yeah, so this has happened before. People get in a tizzy because they, for some reason, believe that the first time they see a game, that's what it's going to look like when they buy it, which I don't know why people believe that.
I mean, I think there's some reasonableness to that argument in certain cases. I thought Watch Dogs was reasonable to get upset about that, partly because people were thinking, this is supposed to be a graphic showcase for the PS4. And then when its graphics were a lie, it was different. But also, those were much more noticeable changes. And you see with Spoderman, the changes are actually far less notable in most cases.
Yeah.
See if I can actually bring up this image. We have some comparisons. of the scenes in which Spider-Man confronts gang members. And yeah, for some reason in the trailer, in the original gameplay footage, there's just water all over the ground, and it's all reflective and pretty. And then in the actual game, there's like very little of it.
Yeah. There's not enough puddles, you see, Lex.
Yeah.
There needs to be more puddles.
But the actual problem is that the lighting is completely different. Everything is way less shaded. It just doesn't look as nice. Let's see, you had brought up a Reddit thread.
It was a Reddit thing, yeah.
Where people were showing off some stuff. Let's see. Yeah, there was just way less in terms of shading and definition to a lot of stuff. Yeah,
I mean, really don't think it's that noticeable.
It's not super noticeable, so it's not that big a deal, but obviously people are going to get upset. Are there any other pictures on this Reddit thread? I don't think there are.
I don't know. Yeah. The big one was people saying like, hey, I think that some shader differences, slight shader differences. The big thing that people were taking away is like, look, all those puddles, and then they took them all away. It must have been because of performance issues. Must be that the game can't handle, or the hardware can't handle the renderers to reflect the water and stuff like that. Members of the Insomniac team did go on to say, nope, that's not the reason why at all. The game can run tons of puddles. It's just that it was an art or gameplay reason. And frankly, when I look at that first picture with all them fucking puddles up on that roof, it looks pretty unrealistic to me. It's like, was there a recent flood in New York that all this shit happened? There would not be that much water on a roof. So it might just be the case that some artist taking a final pass at the game, like, yeah, I think that's a little too much water. I think there's too many puddles up there, and took them away. So yeah, there might be slight graphical differences, but this happens with all games because making video games is nearly impossible. It's a miracle that any of them even come out. And because the thing is, like, when you start developing a game 4 or 5 years in advance, this also brings in Cyberpunk, by the way. But when you start making a game that far in advance, you don't have a pinpoint on what it's going to be able to do on certain hardware until the very end, essentially. So if you're trying to hit a certain hardware window for a certain console, like Spider-Man is doing, you're not going to know exactly how far you can push that hardware until you're pretty far along in development. So anything that you made in the beginning might not be your software might be totally different by the time that you're ready to show it off. So it's often the case with games that when you see stuff really early, it's not going to look anything like it, not even in terms of UI and stuff, but in terms of actual shaders and graphics, because other aspects of the game grew out bigger, and now they have to compromise on graphical limitations to make the more important stuff actually play well with the engine that's being used. And I think it was very apt that someone said, when all this stuff happened, say, this is why CD Projekt Red didn't want to show Cyberpunk stuff to people. That's why they only wanted to keep it to the press and kind of begrudgingly put out the footage, because people are going to look at that 48 minutes of footage for the next couple of years, and no matter what else they put out, people are going to compare every little detail and nag them until the end of time about it.
That's definitely going to happen. I will point out that James Stevenson with Insomniac has been a real American hero on this whole thing, because he's been responding to almost everyone on Twitter who's made posts about this with very reasonable, measured responses.
Yes.
So in response to one of the things where they point out Spider-Man doesn't look as good, he says, I'm telling you, I talked to the technical and engineering and art staff and looked at the live code of this from the final build. There is no downgrade. He goes on to explain, first, the capture on the left is far more compressed, talking about two pictures side by side, crushing dark details. Secondly, the lighting source moved, changing the shadows and the dark details that show up. So that's another thing to take into account, is there's probably a day-night cycle in this game.
Most assuredly, yeah.
And it means that if the light is in a different place, your environment's going to look different.
Yes.
And certain times of the day look prettier than other times of the day. It's just science, you know?
It's just science. That's how the sun works.
There was a fantastic meme that somebody did, though, that I love, that's from, I think, the article I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
Can't believe lying Insomniac Games went and downgraded Spider-Man. Look at E3 build versus release. Hashtag Puddlegate. And you just see a screenshot from the E3 build of Spider-Man, zipping through a city, and then a screenshot from the 60s Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah, which is notoriously awful looking.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So that's Puddlegate in a nutshell.
Yes. It's so crazy to me because even if they did downgrade stuff, like recently they've shown off huge chunks of this game. Like all of the post Sony E3 was just people playing the game. It looks really fucking good. And that's like the done product. So I don't know. People just complain about anything, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. It's
enjoy your Spoodermans.
Spooderman will be fine. He'll be fine. It'll only be bad. So I think this is one of the reasons why Watch Dogs hit as hard as it did, is because not only did they lie, but then Watch Dogs came out and it wasn't very good.
It was pretty bad. Yeah.
So I think if it had come out and it had been a phenomenal game, people would have totally forgotten about that controversy and it would have blown over real quick. But instead, that was like the only thing they had to dwell on because the game wasn't actually that innovative or exciting. And yeah, I think Spider-Man's probably going to be fine because it's going to come out and it's going to be great, and then everyone will immediately forget about this.
Yeah, get your Spoodermans. He'll be fine. And by the way, all I've ever seen from Insomniac in terms of their company culture, the people that work for them at the higher ups, all stuff that I've seen from them, they seem like really nice people. And so it doesn't surprise me that they're tackling the arguments in a metered manner because they just seem like a good company.
Cool. So let's talk about Cyberpunk.
Yeah. Cyberpunk. Out of kind of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere. Gamescom happened recently. CD Projekt Red released a gameplay reveal. It's like 48 minutes long. And it shows a pretty sizable chunk of the game, probably somewhere near the very beginning of the game, I'm guessing. And it looks pretty great, I think. The narrator was really cringy. There's a lot of cringy moments of, cool, we got some new loot. Let's equip it to see what happens, and that kind of shit, which is common for this kind of reveal. But yeah, I think it looks really good. I don't think it looks like the second coming of Christ or anything. I don't think it's not like, the game development gods came from on high and delivered us the future of video games. It looks like a really well polished, really expensive video game with a lot of tried and true mechanics that have been tested in other games. I think it looks a lot like a much bigger, much more intense Deus Ex, and by that I mean the modern Deus Ex games. But yeah, I think it looks fucking really cool. What do you think of it?
I think it looks great. I liked that the person who was doing the voiceover for it was just like, hey, remember everyone, this is not a final version of the game.
Yeah, they definitely made that crystal clear.
Yeah, just kept saying it over and over. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you got to cover your butt, that's what you're going to do. Oh, we also got to see pixelated nudity, but then we get to see real nudity once you actually get into the video.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of strange. I was just like, well, I guess you got to pick your battles or something.
One of the cool things right off the bat in character creation is it talks about how you need to create your character's background, and then that contributes in a big way to things that happen in the story, and just as an RPG element, that's great. I'm really happy that they're doing that. Let's see what else. There's all sorts of customization as to what you look like. I don't know if it'll be as in-depth as like a Bethesda game, but I'm sure it'll have plenty of cool things.
Kind of. I mean, I guess we'll see this in the final version of it or whatever. Kind of disappointed that there's just a binary male-female choice because it's fucking Cyberpunk, and so like. Not only should you be able to be like gender non-binary, but there should be all kinds of fucking wild options. You should be able to not be human at all. If you don't want
that'd
to
be great.
Because there's fucking robot parts. Yeah.
So yeah, we get to see the fact that it's very important that this game is in first person because there's so much gunplay in it.
It's way more gunplay than I actually thought. This seems to be much more of a shooter than I was initially thinking.
Yeah. We got you and your bro going through trying to is this let Let's see. Do they? I don't know if the GameSpot video blurs this. I feel like it
Oh,
doesn't.
let's see. It'd be interesting if they did.
Nah, it looks like they don't.
Yep. And they stream this stuff on Twitch initially anyway, so it's not like
Yeah,
a
that's
problem.
true. But let's see. We've got
Probably
it
the coolest
also
thing about that mission, by the way, is I love that they find you're going to extract some person who had been, they got stolen. People were harvesting their organs or their cyber organs, and I love the whole thing about the trauma team. How it's like if you're rich enough, you can get these like paramilitary people that come with guns to save you if you have enough money for the insurance. I thought it was pretty great.
Yeah, that was pretty great, and they're huge jerks.
Yeah, I was like, get away from the party. It's fucking funny.
They show off that you can have one night stands, which is
Yep.
what they actually talked about, but you sort of see it in the trail or in the gameplay, or you see the aftermath of it.
Yeah.
Let's see. They show when you're in your apartment, like you grabbing your items that you're going to take out with you on your mission, which is a nice little touch. I enjoyed that. You get to see Night City a bit. You get to see the big crowded world. One of the really cool things was you get to see all these people walking around, and they talk about how they have like advanced AI for all these people. And they're all doing their own things and living their lives. And and there's a lot of them, and it feels pretty living. Feels like a real city.
To what degree all that stands up is, I mean, whenever people talk about open worlds, I mean, they were saying those same things when Oblivion came out, you know? So to what degree that will be true, who knows? But it definitely looks fucking pretty and real. Lots of detail. The detail is what kind of blew me away on just everything that's in this game. The biggest thing I would say about this entire reveal, the biggest good thing I can say about this reveal is that it looks like a real game. This doesn't look like a half-baked tech demo. This doesn't look like something like a vertical slice that somebody put together and just kind of like just put it together for E3 or whatever, and it barely works. You know, it's held together by duct tape or whatever. This actually looks like a playable game, which is good because it should. This for 6 years of development, you know, it actually looks like, you know, what we're seeing is going to be pretty close to what we get, I think. And the UI is fucking great too.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I heard people complaining about, and I don't know if I can find it here, but there's a sort of car chase sequence that felt very scripted to a lot of people, and I certainly understand that. It feels you get attacked out of nowhere by these guys who were the people who you're killing in the beginning of the demo. And that whole thing of them chasing you down just does not seem like real gameplay. It seems like a scripted event. So
I wonder how much of the car stuff is like this side of GTA or not. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, because they mentioned you can drive some vehicles, and I just wonder. I wouldn't mind if it's not like fully GTA. You can drive everything anywhere. I would be fine if that's not the case, but it's just that was one thing that I was just watching the car driving kind of slowly and stuff. I'm like, I wonder if you can even like drive off the road or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that there's a lot of driving you can do, because if it's a big urban environment, that's an interesting thing to be able to explore, sort of in a similar way to GTA games.
Yeah.
But let's see, there's some interesting NPC interactions, like with the Militech people. And let's see, it shows off a lot of the different dialogue options and sort of the way that you can maneuver yourself before you go into missions to sort of go into them in different ways. So that was all fun and just like good, solid RPG making. That's the way RPGs gotta be.
It gotta be. And this very much looks like a CD Projekt Red RPG. I guess I was surprised, but I guess I shouldn't have been as surprised how much it actually does seem like The Witcher. Like, you usually get two dialogue options. The quest tracking system seems very much the same. Very much seems like of the same blood as The Witcher 3, just in, first person and a shooter and Cyberpunk. Yeah, I really like the stuff it's showing right now where you talk to people by just like looking at them directly and choosing an option.
Yeah.
Earlier with the Militech thing, like while the woman was berating you, there's a guy pointing a gun to your head, and like one of the options is like grab the gun. So and like you're switching between talking to him and talking to her, and like you can grab the gun, you can change the situation and do stuff like that. I think that shit looks really cool and pretty intense in the first person perspective.
Oh, the character designs are crazy in this game.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah,
the
these guys,
cyborg
yeah.
guys. Like, whoa.
Yeah, they talk about these guys wanting to become robots pretty much, and they just like don't have faces.
But yeah, then we get to see some not only gunplay but like high level gunplay, which is super cool. This game has
Yes.
bullet time, surprising no one. And let's see, I don't remember where in the trailer, but like towards the end, they're basically just like, hey, we unlocked a bunch of high level abilities so you can see what they all look like, and all these crazy guns, and like guns with bullets that track enemies, and guns that can shoot through walls, and all sorts of crazy high tech stuff.
Yeah, there seems to be kind of like almost like jetpacky, kind of zipping around in the air. And
Yeah,
stuff.
well, there's lots of like double jumps and wall running, which, you know, is very cyberpunky, I suppose, very
Yeah.
Matrix.
I hope that stuff works well because it rarely does in first person games.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? A lot of that kind of stuff doesn't work super well in first person games. Although, wasn't Titanfall, doesn't that have a lot of that, and that works pretty well in it?
Titanfall has a lot of that. The zombie game. There's a zombie game that has lots of parkour stuff in it. I can't remember the name of. Fuck, they're making a new one. Don't remember the name, but yeah, it worked pretty well there too. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, CD Projekt Red's got amazing talent, so I give them all the benefits of the doubts thus far.
The environments are also fairly interactable and destructible, which is enjoyable and fun.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, you actually don't see that a ton with games, which I wish you'd see more of.
Especially
Yeah,
not
that's cool.
RPGs. You don't see that with RPGs hardly at all. You see it with first person shooters sometimes. But yeah, a lot of the time it'll be more like a puzzle game or something that'll have things like that. So it was really nice to see. And you know, there's when they're fighting the boss, they find like the certain weak spot on the boss that they have to shoot, which is, you know, not an uncommon game mechanic, but still a nice one to see.
Yeah,
and
it looks fun to kind of zip around with a shotgun and change out your weapons and stuff. Like this is actually in the last bit is when I was like, oh, this is way more of like a shooter than I thought it was going to be because you're changing out weapons almost like you're playing like the new Doom, you know, and changing tactics. That's all fun and it looks fun. I was just surprised at how much of a shooter it is.
Yeah, and that's especially interesting from CD Projekt Red. It'll be interesting to see if they can pull off that gunplay really well because that's not what they're known for. So
they've never made a first-person shooter.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see that. But if this game plays any indication, it should be pretty good.
Yeah,
and it just looks it's exactly what I don't want to say what I was expecting, but it hit all of the beats that I needed it to hit. Right?
Yeah.
That's what the impression I got.
Yeah, it feels like a cyberpunk action game.
Yeah.
It's like I said, yeah, it does. I didn't. Oh, and by the way, as a lot of enthusiast press have mentioned, this is the demo that was shown at E3. This is not a new one. I think in the demo they played as a guy instead of a woman. But in terms of the content, this is the same thing that was shown at E3. And yeah, it's just I didn't. I guess I like that my expectations are set now for kind of what I'm expecting because like I said, I don't think this shows anything that is like literally like the best game ever made, the total sea change for the genre or anything. It just looks like a really high quality, very expensive, very detailed, well made, like Deus Ex kind of open world shooter kind of game made by CD Projekt. And if their talent is anything to go by, then it's going to be a really fucking fun game with a lot of really adult, mature themes and stuff. So yeah, I guess I'm down. I'm totally down for that. Down for all of it.
Yeah. Get that Fago in here. We're down to clown.
Down to clown till we're dead in the ground.
So, with that, let's talk about some games that just came out, some games that are about to come out. We've got, actually today, Divinity Original Sin 2 comes out for the PS4 and the Xbone. So that's the
I thought it was
cool.
already out.
Yeah, so did I, but I remember seeing something about how this is sort of like their enhanced version. I guess it's just been out for PC and maybe Mac prior to this.
Yeah, I'll say this: when looking through like all those Switch games and like I was searching for news this week, and I kept on finding like a review of this game, and I'm like, that game didn't that game come out like 5 years ago? And I find that happening a lot more recently, where things are just getting remade for other platforms a lot recently. So it's like really messing with my brain. And I'm like, didn't this shit's been in early access for 10 years, and like that came out on the fucking PS1, like. And it's just really, it's messing with my head.
Let's see, we've got Dragon Quest 11 for the Windows and the PS4 coming out on September 4th. So that's
Huzzah.
really exciting. Early reviews of that, very, very positive, which I'm excited about.
I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret. I've never played a Dragon Quest game in my life.
I've only played a little bit of one of them. Basically, when it came to JRPGs, I was usually playing Final Fantasy or Phantasy
Same.
Star, like back in the day, Shining Force.
Yeah, totally.
But no, I never got to Dragon Quest. So, although actually no, that's not true, because I played one or two of the early Dragon Warrior games, which later became Dragon Quest. That
Right.
franchise. So no, I guess I have played them before, but back when they were unrecognizable to what they look like now. So let's see here. We have God Wars: The Complete Legend coming out for Nintendo Switch. I don't even remember what that is.
I don't know. It has nothing to do with God of War.
Then, yeah, it doesn't have to do with God of War. If only God of War, aka Dad of Boy, was coming out for the Switch. Never happened, but I can dream. Gone Home is coming out on the 6th for the Switch. Very nice.
See, that's another one where it's like Gone Home review. I'm like, what the fuck? What is life?
And let's see, and then on the 7th we have Spoderman coming out for the PS4.
Spoderman.
And some other things. NASCAR, who cares? Spoderman's coming out. We can see we can see what all this Puddlegate nonsense is cracked up to be on the 7th.
It's just all puddles. That's the main. So you know how they showed all the villains and like there's a secret villain they didn't show at the end. It's just a bunch of puddles.
Well, I was gonna say it could just be Hyderman.
Hyderman.
He's a Spider-Man villain and he's made of water.
Oh, why is he called Hyderman?
Hydro-Man.
Oh, Hydro-Man. Okay.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Hydrobot.
No. The Chic Quattro. Hydrobot.
Chic Quattro. Hydrobot, yeah.
Oh, so...
Jeff Keighley's persona, the Hydrobot.
Okay. We're pretty much done here. We're over by a little bit, but
we should really start the show.
Yeah. Thanks for listening or watching. We appreciate it. This has been Don't Copy That Floppy, video game news podcast, broadcasting live Fridays, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/DCTF podcast. If you're listening in audio form only, you're probably listening on iTunes. We're on iTunes. If you just search Don't Copy That Floppy on iTunes, we're on there. If you're there and you're listening, you're probably checking out our show archive on there, which you can do, and leave us a rating and review. That would be fantastically helpful. Also, we have a show archive on our amazing benefactor, chipbit.net, up on their website. And we're also on YouTube, so we've got the videos from Twitch get uploaded to there somewhat later than the podcast does, but they do get up there. And if you feel like you really love the show and you really want to support it, the best way to do that is to go over to our Patreon and give us a little money every month to help us keep doing what we're doing, and you can get access to bonus podcast content of me and Dan talking about things. And that's pretty much the deal. So, Chris, what do people have to remember?
Stop downgrading the puddles and don't copy that floppy.